Okay, okay. It's 1 Corinthians 8 tonight. If you're watching the recording later, we have a Discord channel. The Discord link is pinned in the live chat. It is also in the description of the video, so you can pop in through there. There's like 180 people in there now. Definitely a small core group of active people. First for once, Nat. Slow day, prepping for the eclipse. Is that what's going on? Are you just preparing for the eclipse there? Let me actually... I'm going to start a poll, so as everybody comes in. There it is. There it is. Do I get to vote? Can I vote? Oh, I do get to vote. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, what did I do? Okay. There we go. I can't see. Whatever. I hope Honk Father gets more involved. I know he works in the middle of the night, but I like that dude's opinions. Yep, I bought up one that TP and canned goods the stores had to offer. I've been waiting to see like runs on the toilet paper again. I thought that was the weirdest thing ever. The weirdest thing in the world to me was when COVID happened, and the thing that people were buying was toilet paper. Like, dude, worst case scenario, it's not ideal, but for God's sake, you could take any cloth, take a bunch of old t-shirts, cut them up, clean them, wash them, and then wet t-shirt, you know, done. Toilet paper. Wild to me, only because things like canned food, rice, batteries, flashlight, like none of the real prepping materials were gone. The toilet paper was gone. Everything else, I could get plenty of it. Toilet paper, I couldn't get. It was the weirdest thing to me. It didn't make any sense. Didn't make any sense. I thought it was just absolutely bizarre. But I guess that's people. I'd like to know the source of that. Like, was there news in the beginning saying, like, there will be a shortage of toilet paper? Was that a thing that I just missed? I don't know. I don't know. Or wash your butt. Yeah, exactly. Lilith, good to see you. I'm glad you walked in as we're talking about washing your butt. This is wholesome Bible study talk. I think. It's good. It's education. I'll never understand it. People were like, I haven't showered in a week during COVID. Like, what? I didn't hear that one. I didn't hear that one. That's crazy. That's crazy. I was a guy during COVID, like going out to drive as much as possible. Just making up reasons to go out. Essential reasons, of course. Essential reasons. To leave the house. I was leaving the house for anything. Anything at all. The roads were amazing. Like that. I'm not about depopulation, just to be clear. But in the event they depopulate, like it was kind of nice being out and not having a bunch of people around. I'd just be honest. But I don't support depopulation. But it was nice. It was a benefit, I suppose you could say. We're going to wait a few minutes. 8 is short, and we're still just going to do 8. So I figure we'll do 8. It's really good. This is honestly like arguably one of the most important sections, if not the most, in the Corinthian epistles, both of them. And then it's definitely top 10 in the entire Bible, in my opinion. In my opinion. I loved being home. It was nice being home, but I got to get out of the house sometimes. But we worked all through COVID. You know, we didn't get to like sit at home and not work. We were both working the entire time. My COVID trip to Georgia was amazing. Yeah, nobody was out. I think because we didn't have to leave, people thought we didn't need to be clean. That's ridiculous. Weirdos. The dog and I took Hella wax. It was great. People were even afraid to be outside. Yeah, well, I mean, you had people literally wearing masks outside. You have people today, years later, still wearing masks outside. Crazy. It's absolute insanity, in my humble opinion. There is something seriously wrong with that. The clean thing, I don't understand that at all, though. Not showering because you're stuck at home. Like you said, that's like, what else is there to do but shower? You should be showering thrice a day, at least, just for something to do. Occupy your time for 20 minutes. That's insane. I never heard that one. There's no rationale behind that whatsoever. That's pretty wild. That is pretty wild. Good God. Can you see me touching this actually? No, you can't. All right, the no's on the eclipse question are going down. We're going down. Out of, apparently somebody came, voted on the poll and left too. Because now we're at 60%, 67% no for are you nervous about the eclipse? We're getting close to 50%. What's up, Ghost? Weird times, man. Weird times. So are you nervous about the eclipse? Yes or no? We have 6 votes, which is weird, again, because that means 2 people voted and left. Which, I mean, I appreciate it. I appreciate the input. I'm holding my mug backwards for you, Nat, just so you know. I switched the entire way that I'm choosing to drink this evening for your benefit and your benefit alone. I just want you to know that. I just want you to know that I thought of you. That's all. It's not a big deal. I'm just a really thoughtful guy. That's all. Not a big deal. All right, I'm going to start. You guys got to let me know if the music is loud or annoying, because I don't care and I turn it off for myself. So I don't even hear it. So let me know if the music is annoying and you want me to shut it off. My boy, Steven. You boy. I mean, just think, if you and Nick ever, you know, tragically get divorced, you could always reach out to Crowder and be verbally abused. It is an option. It is an option. I don't know if it's a great option, but it's an option. Rodriguez. Is it the leftist tears? I thought you weren't a leftist. Why do you care? Got her. No, it's not. It's a Louder with Crowder mug, which if you knew about him, ooh boy, would you be mad? So just don't look into it. I'll tell you that. Because I don't think I've ever heard you talk about Louder with Crowder. So I assume you're ignorant to it, and I would genuinely advise that you keep it that way. Because you would not be happy about it. All right, 1 Corinthians 8. Food offered to idols. Important stuff about this. This is one of those, like, if you hang out a lot, if you're here a lot, regardless of the day that you're here, if you hang out with me a lot, when I reference certain things like adiaphora, or we talk about the gray areas in Christianity, and we talk about what might be right for some Christians, might not be right for others. One isn't necessarily sin due to adiaphora, due to the fact that we are free under Christ, due to the fact that there is a new covenant, we're not held to the law. The law was a mirror, didn't work. Israel failed. Therefore, the new covenant ushered in something new, which was a more simplistic way of living, which is essentially just moral law. We have pretty crisp and definitive lines of what is moral, what is immoral. We have the Great Commission in Matthew, so we have, you know, a very clean understanding of loving each other, period, is basically the law, because it's foundational to morality. And should we all love each other, all of the other things that actually matter, like the 10 Commandments, they all essentially fall into that. You can't break the 10 Commandments and also love the people that you're breaking it in regards to. So it's all interconnected. But this is 1 Corinthians 8 is one of a handful of sections in the Bible that I personally probably refer to more than any other sections in the entire Bible, because I think this is one of the sections that gives Christians an understanding of what is right and what is wrong and how we're actually allowed or supposed to live, while still saying that we're maintaining scripture, we're maintaining the values of God. So, food offered to idols. Paul, he will take up all of these issues because they were raised by the Corinthian people. So again, just like with the glasses on, this is a response to something. The epistle itself is him responding to stuff. It's not him just randomly giving direction or saying, these are things that I want you to know. He was asked questions by human beings who have personalities and problems and are dealing with things in their geographical area. And so he is writing in response to them. Context, super important. The question of whether Christians, believers in Corinth, should or can purchase and consume meat that was previously used in pagan sacrificial offerings. They were used as idols. The meat was used as idols. That's the question. Can Christians, or should they, purchase and consume that meat that was used in those religious practices? He then encourages the believers here, the Corinthians, to act out of love to each other, to all of their fellow Christians, their fellow Corinthians in the church, as opposed to saying that they have this knowledge and understanding and putting themselves in this place of superiority. Because again, greater context too, is you have a big class divide in Corinth. You have people who are super, super poor and people who are very, very well off, very rich. You have people who don't have a lot of, quote, knowledge for their demographic, for their time, their area. Knowledge was cherished more than anything else. Social status was tied directly to this concept of knowledge for them. And knowledge was not tied to scriptures. It was not tied to God. Knowledge at Corinth was tied directly to philosophy. And philosophy, for the most part, was absolute heresy. Some of it was tied to Christian ethics, beliefs, and stories, masquerading as Christianity, but it was paganism, period. It was still heresy. Cooking dinner, so half paying attention. Half is all you need. Your brain functions at 1.5 anyways, so now you're back to baseline, so I think you're probably good. Nothing hotter than a verbally abusive man-child who wears a holster for fashion. Oh, and talks about having girthy mugs. Nothing better than that, because I don't like the mean, insensitive stuff. Yeah, you definitely wouldn't like Steven Crowder then. It is relatively insensitive. I'll say that. All right, chapter 8. Now concerning food offered to idols, we know that, quote, all of us possess knowledge, end quote. So when meat was sacrificed to idols in Corinth, the priest or the high priest or the worshiper, the leader of the pagan ritual, they would burn it at the altar, and then they would eat some of it at the altar. It was a literal offering. The merchants then at Corinth, in Corinth, they would, most of the time, they would sell the rest of it on the open market. So you'd have a religious leader in the pagan religions there. These highly sexualized, in many cases, otherwise highly questionable types of religious practices. And in this context, one thing that they do, of many things that they do that are alarming and off-putting, this one is they would get this meat, they would take it to the altar, they would sacrifice it, they would offer it to gods, and then they would eat parts of it, a small part of it. Then the merchants there at Corinth would take the remainder of the meat and they would sell it on the open market, just down at the market. So anybody could go and buy that meat. And he said, all of us possess knowledge. This is probably a slogan that was used in Corinth. That's the best that I've ever been able to find. Because it's not scripture. It doesn't come directly from anywhere else in scripture. In my my research or my study or my life of going through this so many times, I've also never been able to like directly tie it to anything in the Jewish culture necessarily. So it seems as though, and a lot of scholars who are smarter than me and have spent more time on this than me, it seems like this is probably the best answer. That it was probably some kind of slogan used at Corinth. The knowledge itself probably refers to just general knowledge about idols or about paganism, or to the knowledge given by the Spirit, possibly. The context is unclear. They use the knowledge, though, to justify consuming the meat that had been sacrificed to idols. So he's being a bit sarcastic in using it. All of us possess knowledge. We know that all of us possess knowledge. This knowledge, he continues, puffs up, but love builds up. So he's saying this knowledge that he's referring to is not a good knowledge. It is bad. It's a negative context. Probably because it does have to do with what was happening in Corinth with the idolatry. And that they were saying, they have this understanding of it. I have this knowledge. Therefore, I will use this knowledge to justify my personal belief of that it is okay to consume the meat that had been sacrificed to idols. If anyone, verse 2, if anyone imagines that he knows something he does not yet know as he ought to know. Corinthian people, the believers, the Christians, as they were, they had assumed, or they were assuming, that knowledge itself, again, as this buzzword in Corinth, was the true sign of spirituality. It was the true social status sign, but it was also the true mark of what a spiritual person was. If you were knowledgeable in Corinth, you were like a guru. You were a highly spiritual person. You were to be regarded very, very highly. They did not understand that knowledge, that same buzzword knowledge in their context, without love is actually not having knowledge. Knowledge without love indicates that you lack knowledge. And that's what Paul is going to try to get at. If anyone imagines that he knows something, he does not yet know as he ought to know. But if anyone loves God, he is known by God. Paul then but if anyone loves God, he is known by God. He's identifying love as the actual true basis of the knowledge that the Corinthians are speaking of. So they have this twisted understanding of what knowledge is, thinking that it is a sign or a mark of being highly spiritually driven or highly spiritually in a state of being knowledgeable. And Paul is saying, if you have that, but you lack love, it's hypocritical. They're conflicting. They're antithetical. Love is the true basis of knowledge, which makes sense in the greater context of Christianity, because love is basically the basis of Christianity. As I kind of said in the beginning, the Great Commission, the greatest law, the law of love, whatever your church calls it, it's all the same thing. Those people who love God in relationship and who are in a relationship with God have that contact that we talk about when we're talking about prayer. We talk about it a lot. It's the connection. It's the contact. It's none of the other fluffy bullshit. It's spirituality is figuring out how to have some kind of connection to the other realm. The other realm being God, at least as the central deity for Christians. This is also the basis for godly conduct, behavior, actions. It does not destroy other believers, but it builds them up, which is going to lead in to what he's going to talk about next. Therefore, as to the eating of food offered to idols, we know that an idol has no real existence and that there is no God but one. I love this, and it always makes me think of Catholicism, and not in a negative way, but in an interesting way. An idol has no real existence. Some of the Corinthians, and they're right, they correctly discern that an idol in and of itself was an object. An idol doesn't actually mean anything. And if I have an idol of this little statue of a cat, I have these on my desk because a cat got them for me, and I love them. They're very valuable to me. So call it an idol. This is my idol. What is this? It has value because I assigned value to it. This has value because somebody gave it to me in a manner that is meaningful to me. This in and of itself means nothing. It's stone that is carved. But one could call this an idol. You could call this an idol, not because of what it is, not because necessarily of how it's made, not because of the fact that I have it in my hand, but really because I've assigned value and meaning to it. So in a religious context, an idol can only be an idol if idolatry is happening within it, if idolatry as an action is happening. That's it. The objects mean nothing. And a lot of the Corinthians, shockingly, they understood this. They understood that it had no real divine power whatsoever. They may have used the slogan, that's why it's in quotes, an idol has no real existence. He's probably quoting them in this scenario. He's probably quoting the Corinthian people when they ask the questions or when they're making a case for their behavior, because this is basically him responding in kind to things that they're either asking him directly or that they're trying to justify why they're behaving in ways that they are, that he probably at some point mentioned wasn't okay. And probably in some points, he didn't say that it wasn't okay, but they're still trying to justify what it is that they're doing. So they may have used that slogan, an idol has no real existence. Then it says, and that there is no God but one. Possibly, probably, don't know for sure. Could be an allusion to Shema. So if you go to Deuteronomy 6:4, you can read more about it, but this is interesting. I'm just going to read a little bit of this. So the 6-word creedal statement, sometimes referred to as a prayer, derives its name from the statement's first Hebrew word, which is the command to hear, and is expanded to include all of Deuteronomy 6:4 through 9. Jews recite the Shema in the morning and the evening. I don't believe this is used much anymore, unless you're ultra-Orthodox. I could totally be wrong, though. But I've known a lot of Jewish people in my day. I've never, ever had this be brought up. But that's what it is. If you're interested in looking more into it, you can read a lot about it. It could be that that is what the reference is. There is no God except one. Could be quoted for that reason, pulled from that prayer or that credence. 5, for although there may be, quote, so-called gods in heaven or on earth, as indeed there are many gods, lowercase g, and many lords. So there may be many gods and many lords. Here, Paul he's going to acknowledge that people worshipped other divine beings as gods. If you've actually read the Old Testament, there is nowhere that says that other gods didn't exist. In fact, there are many references to other gods. It's another thing that blows my mind. Talking to Christians in the street or at a church, they'll fight you to the death on this, and I don't understand how. The Old Testament has tons of references to God. So, lowercase g gods. There's no indication that the Jews didn't believe in other gods. There's no indication that Christians didn't believe there were other gods. It doesn't mean you worship them. It doesn't mean you believe that they are the God. But the Bible actually, in and of itself, supports the idea that other gods exist, that they're out there, but that there is one creator. There is one capital G God, and it's a very different thing. It seems that Jews in the ancient Near East, they would affirm the existence of all of these other gods. If you go to Deuteronomy, if you go to Psalm, it's in there. There's a lot of references to it, but they did consider them as inferior. And there's a lot of references to that. They were inferior to the God of Israel in the eyes of the Jews. And so in the eyes of the Christians, it was the same, especially considering that many Christians were converted Jews. 6, yet for us there is one God, the Father, from whom are all things and for whom we exist, and one Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom are all things and through whom we exist. There you get a good glimpse of him tying them together, Jesus and God, but also, again, keeping them apart, which we were talking about the other day too. And that was a really good conversation. So and this is another kind of data point for if that was something we were studying, the whole when we were talking about, well, God and Jesus are the same, but they're also not the same. When in the Old Testament, God was existing, then he sent Jesus here, but he still existed elsewhere. And then when Jesus died, Jesus went to God. And then I think it was, who was it? Shoot. I was just talking about him earlier. Oh, Honk Father mentioned that Jesus, well, once he ascended, he was at the right hand of the Father. So we have that whole dynamic, right? Of like who Jesus is in comparison to God. Are they the same? Are they different? Are they the same and also different? Because it's something that is outside of our conception. Regardless, this is one of the data points for it. Yet for us, there is one God, the Father. But then he also says, and one Lord, Jesus Christ. There's a separation, but he also ties them together. God the Father, from whom are all things, and for whom we exist. But Jesus, through whom are all things, and through whom we exist. It's an interesting dynamic. It's interesting how the Bible refers to them. Because it's clear, but it's also unclear. Therefore, to me, it's interesting. Hold on one sec. Let me see if I missed anything important from y'all. Risotto. Idols are physical proxies for an idea or ideology, aka spirits. Yeah, essentially, yeah. The golden rule. Is there a recipe in the chat right now? Oh no, he's cooking. How do you feel, Nat said, how do you feel about when people say concepts or non-physical things can become idols in our lives, food, career, money, etc.? An idol is just something, basically, an idol is just something you put before God. So an idol can be anything. An idol is just something you revere or hold to some kind of high status before God. It's something you idolize, when God should be the supreme idolization in your life. So I think it could be anything. So would these verses be applicable for today? Yeah, and you'll see why shortly. But yeah, 100%. In my opinion, 100%, this stuff is applicable today. And I sure as hell don't say that about everything. Ghost is going to cater our wedding. Just decided. Done. Not a hard call. Kosher. Slaughter is a whole other story. Not a good one. Got myself some sake for tomorrow's eclipse because you never know. I guess that's a good way. It's a good way to go through it. Whiskey for Ghost during the eclipse. I don't drink, so I'll probably have kombucha or tea, I would guess. I'll be having a dental surgery tomorrow. Oh my gosh. What if something happens while you are having your teeth drilled? No, I don't like it. I don't like it. All right, verse 7. However, not all possess this knowledge, but some, through former association with idols, eat food as really offered to an idol, and their conscience, being weak, is defiled. Super important. Their conscience being weak. Actually, let me highlight it a different way. Oh, that's going to be really annoying. Hold on, y'all. Give me 2 seconds. Double box that boy. All right. Their conscience, being weak, is defiled. So, but for some, through former association with idols, what does that mean? Through former association with idols, due to those specific people's past, eat food as really offered to an idol, and their conscience, because it is weak, is then defiled. Wildly important sentence structure, wildly important message, but we'll come back to it. Hey, food, actually, hold on. So he, in the beginning, he said, however, not all possess this knowledge. This knowledge is an emotional, it's a self knowledge, as I guess, as opposed to an intellectual smarty pants knowledge. It's an inner knowledge, an inner understanding. And then he said, eats food as really offered to an idol. in the Greco-Roman world, in their world, food sacrificed to idols, any food that had been sacrificed to idols, in many cases, not all, but in most, many or most cases, it would be considered a means of communion with those gods, which makes sense if you think about the idolatry nature of it. That would be the perspective of the people of the time. It would be the perspective of those who were around you. And then he said, and their conscience, not yours. He said, their conscience, because it is weak, being weak, is then defiled. Believers who could not grasp, they could not comprehend that idols are not actually divine, as he said earlier, that they're not actually divine, they could become defiled due to their lack of understanding. This is the milk-fed Christians versus the meat-fed Christian thing. I don't know if your church describes them that way. It's mature Christians who have some kind of understanding of things, or perhaps you'd say have strong faith and convictions, to maybe new Christians, or I'd say most Christians now, who just really don't understand like scripture. They don't really understand their spirituality. They just kind of believe whatever it is that their church pumps out. There's a difference between those two people. There's a difference between if we pluck one of you who's here right now, and we pluck a random person from a neighborhood church, and we sit you both down, and we're like, okay, what do you think about this? What are the implications of this? What is the theological implication if this, and this happen? How do you how would you exegete this section of scripture? There would be a difference between one of you answering that and just a random person at a church. It would be a wildly different experience, and there would be wildly different answers to it. They, Corinth, many of them, they remain convinced that there is an entity that existed behind the idol. They believed that the idol mattered. They didn't understand that the idol was an inanimate object. They didn't understand that the idol didn't actually mean anything. They thought there was actually value to the idol itself. They thought that the little cat statue in and of itself meant something, that just me having it did something bad, was something bad. So to their conscience, consuming meat sacrificed to idols seemed like actual idolatry, because they were immature, because they didn't understand the difference, whereas some of them did. And that is the divide, and that is what adiaphora is. So for me having these little cat statues, this does nothing wrong, because I know that this is a rock that was carved into a cat. This could, in another religion, mean something, because the people of that religion have assigned spiritual value to it, and then they perform spiritual behaviors with it. Same thing, same object, completely different outcome. That's what he's explaining. He goes on, we are no worse off if we do not eat, and no better off if we do. But take care that this right of yours, it is a right, this right of yours, does not somehow become a stumbling block to the weak. Who are the weak? They are the immature. They are the spiritually immature people. They are probably the majority, meaning just over 50% of all Christians who are walking the planet today, in my opinion. They would be the weak. Meaning, things that you and I know don't matter, to more than half of Christian people, it would matter, because they're assigning a spiritual value to the thing that you know is just an object. It doesn't matter. It doesn't actually do anything. However, in their eyes, it could. And so you have some kind of responsibility in that regard. But take care that this right of yours, because it is your right as a Christian to have a statue of a cat, to have things that may be considered idols by other Christians because they're immature. It is your right to have them. So assign this to something else. The Christian tattoos, for example. It is your right to have tattoos because you are free under Christ. However, there will be some Christians who could potentially stumble from that. If you have a brand new Christian who's converted from Judaism as your friend, and you're all rah-rah about tattoos, and they've grown up seeing that whole thing completely different, and it causes them to question the Christian lifestyle, question Jesus as the Messiah, because you are not displaying what they believe Christianity is. You have a right to the tattoos. However, there could still be a consequence to the way that you are approaching the subject of tattoos with that weak Christian. So you have a right to it because you are free under Christ, but you also have a responsibility to be aware and understand who you are around and how you are behaving and how you are speaking about these things. So that this right of yours does not somehow become a stumbling block to the weak, to the immature Christians. 10, for if anyone sees you who have knowledge eating is an idol's temple. For if anyone sees you who have knowledge eating in an idol's temple, will he not be encouraged? If his conscience is weak to eat the food offered to idols? Some of the Corinthians, some of those Christians, they would not only eat meat that was sacrificed to idols, but would also eat with the pagans, would also eat in the temples. And this is when, if you've been here for all of 1 Corinthians, I've mentioned it a handful of times, that one of the primary problems at Corinth is that the Christians at Corinth are going out to pagan temples. They're going out to pagan rituals, and they're bringing paganism into the church. They're bringing pagan behaviors into the church because a lot of them are still engaging in paganism. They are like the New Age Christians today who are going to church on Sunday, and then the rest of the week they're studying crystals and they're doing tarot card readings, and they consider themselves to be freaking witches. And then they come back to church on Sunday and they talk to all their friends at church, and they're dragging that pagan bullshit, excuse my language, into the church. It's the same thing. So a lot of the Corinthian people would eat the meat, no problem. And they would also eat the meat in the temple where the idolatry is happening, where people of a religious orientation are performing religious acts with the idol. It's a defining thing. The meals that they were having as Christians then, what seems to be happening at Corinth as a result of all that is that some of the immature Christians, they were returning to paganism because they were no longer understanding that there was a divide between paganism and Christianity. Because the Christians at Corinth who were engaging in paganism, they muddied the water. They blurred the line between what is paganism, what is pagan, and what is Christian. They were going to pagan stuff as Christians, and they were bringing pagan stuff into their Christian church. So a lot of the immature Christians were watching this and were like, F it. And they went back to idolatry. They went back with those crappy Christians to practice idolatry because they didn't understand where the line was anymore. So Paul is trying to explain to Corinth as a whole, to if you're going to eat the meat that was sacrificed, because you understand the difference between it being idolatry and you just eating meat from the market, be careful about who you're around. That's it. Be careful about where you are. Are you around immature Christians who are not going to see? Are they going to think that the line between paganism and Christianity is blurred? Or are they going to understand spiritually that you bought that meat from the market? Sure, its past was in a pagan temple, but you just bought it from the market innocently because you need food. That's it. Same event, same action on you as the strong believer's part. But depending on who your audience is, depending on who is around you, depending on who you're choosing to eat with or where you're choosing to eat and who might be there, there could be a very different outcome. And you can push people away from God because they don't understand where the line is anymore. He said, will he not be encouraged? Some translations might say strengthened, but he's being ironic, which is always why I love him. Many of the believers there who were doing the idol feasts together, it seems that they were assuming that they were helping the Christians who were immature by doing that, but they were actually hurting them. There seems to be that a lot of the mature Christians who were engaging in the meat together, because they knew that it didn't mean anything, they knew it had no spiritual actual value to it, so they were having these dinners together. They thought perhaps that they were helping the immature Christians by doing it. They thought that they were showing them that there is freedom under Christ. They thought that they were showing them that idolatry is a state of mind. It's a choice. It's not the object. But instead, what the result seems to be is that a lot of those weak believers, they couldn't grasp that. Therefore, they went back to actual idolatry. If his conscience is weak, to eat the food offered to idols. 11. And so by your knowledge, this weak person is destroyed. The brother for whom Christ died. What a strong ass sentence. And so by your knowledge, sarcasm, by your knowledge that is not actually knowledge, because you are being ignorant and not understanding who is around you, not understanding how other weaker Christians might be perceiving what you're doing, that person is destroyed. And then he adds on the brother for whom Christ died. So he's referring to hurting a believer whose conscience was weak in terms of this context, in terms of understanding that idols don't mean anything. Paul considers it a sinful behavior for a mature believer to exercise their right of freedom under Christ in a way that could harm fellow members of the church, because they should know better. So he's calling them out in a pretty brutal way. 12. Thus, sinning against your brother and wounding their conscience when it is weak, you sin against Christ. Therefore, if food makes my brother stumble, I will never eat meat, lest I make my brother stumble. There's an implication when he says you sin against Christ. There's an implication that Christ would count what you do to other Christians as you doing it to him. We get other indications like that from he himself in Matthew, and there's a reference in Acts. But Paul goes so far as to say, therefore, if food makes my brother stumble, I will never eat meat, because he doesn't want to make his brother stumble. Wildly important section. Super, super important section. Incredibly important section, because this is applicable to everything. Because it's not today. Is the actual context of eating meat that's sacrificed to idols, does it matter? No. That portion of it is irrelevant. But the message of you being responsible for what you may lead weak Christians into, that message is alive and well. That message is wildly relevant, super relevant. And Christians have tattoos. True. Girlies with their angel numbers tattooed on them and crystal necklaces who are also Christian, it's always made me uncomfortable. Yeah, that's these people. Those girlies that you see who are doing tarot card readings and are wearing crystals and stuff. Again, there is a possibility that they don't assign any value to it. And it could just be that they like wearing crystals, and the tarot cards you can't really justify, but the crystals you can justify. They just may like the way they look. They might like having them around. It gives an earthy vibe to their whatever, their house, their car, their bedroom, whatever. And maybe they're not assigning spiritual value to it. However, the girlies who are doing the crystal thing and doing tarot card readings and also calling themselves Christian, they are Corinthians. They are identical because they're practicing paganism and they're probably bringing it into their Christianity. I did a video on this. So hold on, actually. Because there was this girl there was this girl, hold on, who, if you go to my YouTube and you go to I'm a Christian Witch, it's this one right here. Christian Witch, tarot cards, sorcery, and white magic as a Christian. That's what this whole thing was about. So if you didn't see this, I highly recommend you watching this. I don't ever tell you guys to watch videos that I do because I don't care. I would recommend watching this one because this was a really, really good example of just how twisted all of this stuff becomes. Because it becomes super twisted. It becomes very, very twisted. Where this girl is literally calls herself a witch. She does tarot cards. And throughout the whole video, actually, let me play the intro for you. Hold on. Because this is funny. The intro, at least, is funny.
I thought you said you were a Christian.
I was about to say I'm a Christian, but there's a difference between being a Christian doing white magic and black magic. Spells.
All the shit the Bible says not to do.
Yeah. I'm not following the Bible like everyone else is. If I quit doing what I'm doing and I studied the Bible more, absolutely.
Then I don't understand why you don't do that.
Because I don't want to. Because I don't want to. Because I don't want to.
Oh.
If you just believe whatever is so it was really interesting to see, if nothing else, to be able to watch that, like that actual personality of somebody who is actively practicing paganism, calling themselves a Christian, and then the whole video, like if you have time, watch the whole part of this video at whatever of her, between her and Andrew, because he completely destroys her, and it's totally polite. It's very calm, and all he did was ask her questions. And that's why I constantly say, like, the minute you start pressing a Christian and asking them questions, they crumble. They crumble because they have no idea what they believe at all. They're lost. They're totally lost. They're completely confused. And they're absolutely deluded into thinking that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And then finally he got her to say, she doesn't care. Why do you not just read the Bible? Well, because I don't want to. Then you're not a Christian. If you're not going to follow Christ, like the tenets of Christianity, which was the teaching of Christ, which is not a hard thing to follow. If you're not going to do that, you're not a Christian. Because of the way words work, you're not a Christian. My brother is an alcoholic, and I don't feel comfortable drinking around him. I mean, I understand that. I have a Christian tattoo as well, but a big thing amongst people my age and younger are angel numbers. Oh, never mind. I'm gonna keep it to myself. Witchery is a new trend right now. It's crazy. Yeah, we did. So, God, it was a long time ago now, but we did a live stream on TikTok witches. That was really good. That was crazy. Where the whole thing was basically, we just went through a bunch of TikTok, because there's a part of TikTok called witch talk. It's witch talk. And it is full of people who genuinely think they are witches, and it is insanity. When you find a rabbit hole on TikTok, you see just how mentally ill society is. And it's crazy. Superstition has returned with a vengeance across the board yet. 100%. Crystals work, but only when applied right. All of our electronic devices have crystals in them, including our bodies. But wearing a crystal around your neck for some kind of magical reason is different. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Cat's into crystals, but not in a pagan way. Actually, if we're being completely like honest and trying to be accurate, there's not a lot of paganism to the whole crystal thing. It's not really like a pagan thing. It was something that came much, 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 much later. But it gets like attributed to kind of like the New Age kind of paganism. Crystals have been full-fledged brought in to the New Age kind of paganism. But like historical paganism, crystals weren't really a thing. But yeah, like crystals do stuff. Crystals are a part of like probably way more of your life than you actually understand. But the magical, like, I can't remember, but some of the videos that we watched of like the weird stuff that girls were doing with crystals, that is a whole different thing. It goes to show that something like tattoos is morally neutral, but people like you and I honor him permanently on our bodies. Oh, him, God, permanently on our bodies. People with witchy tattoos do the opposite, all about intention. But my mom tried to cast the devil out of me for getting a tattoo. Literally had a damn meltdown over it. Jesus. Yeah, my mom saw all my tattoos at once. So there was a day where my mom saw me and I had no tattoos. And then there was a day my mom saw me and I had all of my tattoos. And she didn't see me anytime in between. And she cried like a lot. And I felt really, really bad. Very, very bad. Because she was a good old Catholic girl. So very sad day for old mama there. That's it. We'll go like 10 more minutes. Anybody, you guys can bail if you were just here for the Bible stuff. But next week we'll do 9. Oh, I keep forgetting to do the poll actually too. So I'm gonna do that while we hang out. If anybody has anything, feel free to throw it out. Is there anything anyone is dying to talk about on Thursday? I guess while we are all here together. Let's see if the poll works. It was giving me a hard time last time. What are some things for Thursday? Potential topics. I can get the list, but if you guys have anything, I'll put it on the poll. Different topic ideas. Or did we talk about something already? I don't think we did. I don't believe that we did. Salvation. Okay. Salvation's on. Let's see, where's the topics? We had some good stuff on the list. Hold on here. I'll get them. Biblical war was one. Flat Earth is due for another round. Gnosticism, alchemy, sleep paralysis was on for a while. It never got picked. Tattoo lives matter. The difference between philosophy and theology was one of them. Like, how do I know really if I'm going to heaven or hell? I was certain before, but now I don't know. I mean, what are you basing it off of? Would be kind of like my question. Where are you looking as the source to know the answer to the question? Inner Earth? Like Sheol? Is that what you mean by inner Earth? Inner Earth question mark? How about how private prison systems is horrifying? That would be a good topic. The private prison system, the history of it is crazy. I don't think that's on the list, actually. I'll put that on the list, too. Souls. What was this? Yale research. Oh, geez, that's hot. Never mind. I don't want to bring that up. What about inner Earth? Clarify. Can you lose your salvation? All right. Well, so I'll put it on the poll, but I'll just put it as salvation deep dive. And then we can cover all that stuff. Those are good questions. Yeah, I think that's a great topic. I feel like we haven't really talked about like salvific law, at least not a lot. But I mean, yeah, I agree with Ghost. I think you're probably good. Inner Earth. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I'm down. I like that. I think that's a great topic. All right. Agartha. Kingdom of the Inner Earth. That'd be a good one. What a great addition there, Rodriguez. That sounds like something the devil wants me to play. Okay, so we got open forum discussion, which will just be random stuff until we land on something. I assume is how that's going to go. That's what happened last time. Salvation, a deep dive, the Kingdom of the Inner Earth, which I'm sure probably maybe a few of you have like looked into it, but that'd be really interesting. Yeah, we kind of brushed on it with like Sheol, but not really. Anything else? Any other ones we want to throw on here? And then I'm gonna call it a night. What if God is like, you fight with ghosts too much, you're not allowed in now? I mean, that might be true. You know how there's like how like the CIA will implant someone in China, like have an American Chinese person, but they'll plant them in China to get in with the CCP. I feel like Ghost is a spiritual plant from the other realm, and he's here to try to get people to understand wild shit. I think that's what Ghost's life actually is. I think he's a spiritual plant. I think his Instagram bio should say spiritual plant. How about the history of Disney? At some point, we need to talk about the history of Disney. Why we haven't, I don't know. I'm going to put that at the top of the list. The history of Disney is wild. I'll put it on the poll, but I will make sure that it goes on the actual topic list. So, the history of Disney. What was the other one that you put out there a minute ago? Private prison system. Okay. You had a father, Ghost, change it. Illuminati. That's like a pornographic Illuminati skit. That would be the name of it. It would be called Illuminati. I took a class about Walt and his philosophy business model in college. It was fascinating. Nat, do you remember enough to co-lead that stream with Kat? And I'll just kind of sit here and run the stuff. But you guys can, perhaps you two can confer and put together a slideshow and do the history of Disney, because I think that would be awesome. Kat knows a lot of like the conspiratorial history of Disney. So if you could add like the philosophical side and the business model, that could be a really, really interesting talk. I'd be very interested to hear a lot of that. It was super cool. He was a smart dude. Every detail about Disney is so curated. It's wild. Oh, it's crazy. My kid just went to Disney World for spring break. And so Kat sat her down ahead of time and like showed her all of the secret stuff that she had to find at Disney. And so she was sending pictures, the kiddo was, from Disney, like finding all the hidden Mickey faces and stuff. All right. Nat and Kat confer. Figure that out. Yeah, no, I mean, it won't be next week. So you guys get together. And if you guys could actually make a slideshow, that'd be sick. So like maybe you guys talk, decide what aspects of the topic you're each taking. So if Nat takes the philosophy, the philosophical side of Disney and what the business model was, she takes that and she's responsible for 10 slides. And Kat takes all of the conspiracies or whatever and is responsible for 10 slides. And then you guys send me the slideshow, or you each send me your half of the slideshow. I'll put them together and then we can present them. I would love to see that. I would be very interested in that, because I don't care enough to like spend my time on it. But anytime I do see something about it, I'm like, damn, that was really interesting. I would like to know more. You also hate the word moist, Cat? I don't believe she hates the word moist. I'm gonna need more than a week. Cat has a cool ring to it. Did somebody? What happened? Oh, she said I hate the word naughty. Yeah, Cat does hate the word naughty. Like yolk. Nat and Cat. It's like the name of a podcast. It'll be the Nat and Cat show that night. It does have a cool ring to it. You guys should start a business just because that would be a great domain name. I'll buy the domain name. You guys start the business. It is in fact open, and it is $9.99. So perhaps I'll buy that. I used to hate it until I realized how much everyone else hates it. So I desensitized myself in the name of annoying others. Yeah, moist has never really bothered me. I don't care. I mean, it's the context in which you use it. If you use moist in the context that most people joke about using it, then I do think it's gross. In that context, it's gross. But like bread being moist just means like it's kind of wet. It doesn't need to be gross. Rodriguez said, oh, guess what, guys? I had a financial miracle, kinda. So I'm not broke anymore. Would you care to share more? Did you win the lottery? Nat said, I feel like we'd absolutely be able to do a podcast. I think you guys would. Kat said, I must admit, I dislike the oi and the s just rubs me the wrong way. So you like the M and the T? You like MT? I'll do your tech stuff. You guys just need to get on microphones and talk. How about that? Graves needs a moist towel. I was about to say something really inappropriate. I'm glad that my brain decided not to do that. It was very close. I can get around. I have a degree in marketing and I work in IT software procurement. So more than the average teddy bear, she says. Well, you guys let me know. I think you guys would run a fantastic podcast together. So play a lot of oi punk around your wife. What the hell is oi? I don't understand what Kat is referring to. I don't understand the oi and the s. I don't get it. I'm dull.
Can I talk on here?
Yes, you can.
Oh, can I say what happened really quick?
Yeah, hold on. Say something real quick.
Say something really quick.
Okay, you're good. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think you guys know what's been going on. So I prayed with these older people from my church, my old church, that are super Pentecostal, and I was like kind of hesitant, but I applied at like all these different places for like financial assistance, and it was kind of a long shot because they have hundreds of applicants, and I actually, I don't know, what do you want to say, like won the raffle or whatever, but they agreed to pay for my rent this month.
Really?
Yeah, so now I can actually be financially caught up for a while. So I was like crying, like happy tears, which almost never
Oh,
happens.
that's awesome.
Right.
You don't. So
No, yeah,
you
it really
won
was.
it was a raffle that you won.
No, 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 but like we don't have state funding. We only have federal funding in our state. So
Oh,
a lot of the charities and organizations, yeah, it sucks. Like people think that there's just programs out there, but they've been shut down for months, and some of them have like a year or two waiting list. So the fact that I
wow.
applied, yeah, like it was a long shot, and I knew it was a long shot, and yeah,
That's
like
crazy.
that's what I'm saying. I cried, like
I
yeah,
bet. That's awesome.
yeah,
Jesus. That's very cool.
for sure, for sure.
God, good for you, man. That's got to be just a huge relief. Jesus.
You have no idea. I don't think I shared with everyone, but I was so desperate. I actually panhandled for the first time in my life.
Really?
Yeah, and I never thought, like, I don't know. And the crappy thing is I went on the strip, which is busy 24/7, and I was out there for 2.5 hours and I made a whole damn dollar and that was it.
No.
I kid you not. And then I was like, I gotta bring the dog or something.
How see, that's so I don't get it, man. Like,
But then I'm thinking like, okay, was that God? Like, hey, don't do this, girl. Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, I do. That's interesting. Yeah. I just
Oh,
remember like when I was growing up in Denver, we lived in like the inner city, like the depths of Denver. And so panhandling was like really big. When I went to school, it was like I walked past these people all day. So there was the guys that I knew that I became kind of friends with as I became a street urchin. The ones who made the most money were creative with it. So like there was this one guy my whole life I'll never forget this guy because his sign said, "I bet your punk ass couldn't hit me with a quarter."
with a
And so
quarter,
people would throw money at him, and I'm sure like it's a popular sign, and I'm sure those people make a bunch of money. I would
no,
imagine.
maybe because I was an a-hole, mine started off with like, the system doesn't work! Exclamation point.
Oh no, you have to put
Yeah.
my children are starving.
Well, I said how sick I was and that I was pending SSI and disability, and I don't know. I don't want to seem
Interesting.
manipulative. I was desperate, but
No,
like
I know.
I felt guilty just even being there.
Yeah, I mean, but that's I don't know, man. Like I don't know. It's you don't have money and you can't work. You know, like
Yeah,
that's one of the
yeah.
things that people do, you know. I don't know. I used to be honest, I used to always give money to people who are panhandling. And I made a lot of friends with people who were panhandling. And I'd give like it to the point where a lot of them, not all of them obviously, but a lot of them like I'd give rides places and stuff for a long time because it's
Mm,
just like they're normal people. They're just like a lot of them, the ones that I knew were just like having a hard time. And some of them like chose the life, you know. They're like, I don't want to live under the system, so I do this. I get enough food to eat
mm.
and I go sleep wherever the hell I can sleep. And I'm like, whatever, dude. You know, you need a ride, you're going my way, I'll take you. But I've become
I'm a girl.
much more cynical. Yes, and for women, it's absolutely different.
I'm smaller, and I think Vegas were like number 2 or something for
Yeah,
sex trafficking.
yeah. Vegas is rough. I would be concerned for myself if I was a woman in Vegas panhandling.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I don't think it was a God thing, but the very next day as I was gonna go out, um, is when my tooth got really infected. I couldn't even
Oh my god.
go.
Hello.
Hey there.
I figured I'd come
Yeah.
put my 2 cents into the story about panhandling.
Oh,
I
go
used to
ahead.
do.
Yes, please
I
do.
used to
Thanks for
do.
not making me feel alone.
Hey, no, I used. I would- well, my family was not very wealthy, so I had it whenever I needed to go someplace. My mom was at work. You know, I had no ride to get to the place I need to go, so I was like, screw it. I started asking people, and they were like, "Oh, you're probably gonna go buy drugs." I was like, "No, I'm actually gonna go wait for the bus. If you want to come sit with me and talk with me until the bus gets here, I don't mind people talking with me while I wait."
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I had one guy sit there and wait with his phone out. So if he saw me walk to a liquor store, he was gonna call the cops on me. But then
Oh
when he
my
saw me get on the
god.
bus, he saw me get on the bus and leave. He just kind of sat there in his car. I was like, yeah, okay, do what you got to do, boss.
That's crazy. Like
And
either
See,
give money or don't. You know, don't be a dick about it.
but when I did used to panhandle like for food and like just to get to places, I would do it for like 2 hours. And because I was in Orange County, and I would go to certain
oh,
places.
LA, that's smart.
Yeah, I lived in Orange County, so I'd hang out in Huntington Beach or Santa Ana, and I'd be like, oh, if it was Mexican people, so I'd put on my Mexican, I talk in Spanish because might as well, I'm Mexican, so you take
Yeah, you gotta
advantage
pull
of it.
that card. Yeah.
So I'd be like, oh, buenos días, con cambio para los bus, and they'd be like, oh, do you need change? I was like, yeah. And they give me like here, and they'd pull out a handful. If I did in Huntington Beach, I'd score like 10, $20, and I'm like, I'm good for the rest of the day. See you later.
Oh my god.
It was
You know
it
what? Okay, let me
is what
ask
I
you
did.
this.
Go
Maybe
ahead.
this is the part that screwed it up, okay? I actually had my Cash App on there.
Yeah, that probably didn't help.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, you
Well,
don't have to touch me. You don't have to look at me. You don't have to like.
well, they know you got a phone, so like if the
I
bitch got a
know, and
phone,
I
then
was
they're gonna,
super.
you
I
know,
was like, they're gonna see my iPhone, and I'm done.
That's
yeah.
yeah.
See,
Yeah.
see,
Yep.
but you got to remember, I did this when I was a teenager, so and this was like the
Uh,
early 2000s. And whenever I did it, I'd get creative with it, just like you guys were saying. Except for like if it was like a group of old ladies, the first thing I'd do is I'm like, oh, I was like, young ladies, I'd hit on them, like, say like something, cute to them. And they'd be like, oh,
yeah.
I was like, sorry. I was like, I'm sorry, ladies, young ladies, can I get some spare change? I need to catch the bride back home to, get with my brothers, or I'm going to this place and meeting up with friends and I'm short on change. And they're like, oh, and they just start handing out change, whatever they got. If not, they walked right by and ignored me. I was like, all right, see you later.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, like in my experiences, I've never been on that side of it, but I've given a lot of money. Like it was one of the big things that I used to do as like a tithe, because I've really never given money to churches because I've always hated it. That's something I used to do to tithe, is like give money to people, because I'd sit and talk, and like a lot of them would be like,
Right.
yeah, I believe in God, like I'm Christian, this or that. I'm like, okay, well that's a freaking tithe to me, and even if they weren't, it would be a tithe to me. But it's in because the people who would engage with me, it's disarming also, because you have a lot of people, like even men. I feel like there's like this tightness that you get when you're approached by a panhandler, regardless
Yeah.
of who you are. So I think like if you do something like that, you engage, or you're humorous, or if something to kind of like break the ice and start just some kind of dialogue, I think your chances are much higher. Because for me, they were. I had a much
Well,
easier time being like, yeah, of course, here.
another cool thing I used to do since I was in Orange County, I took the bus everywhere. Me and my best friend would go. We didn't have rides. They're like, oh, hey, there's a punk show going on. Let's jump on the bus. Let's go there. We would, because we always went by Disneyland. We'd stop off there and we'd make a bunch of change. We used to make little signs that say picture with the punk. And people would be like, oh, especially like the foreigners, they see a punk rocker, they're like, oh, your hair. And they'd like, oh, you got $5? Take a picture with us, me and my friend. And they'd take a picture, and we had our hair spiked out and all patched up and everything, the full punk rock getup. And they'd be like, "Oh, punk rocker, you're a punk rocker," and it was like we would make so much money on days like that,
I bet.
because
Yeah.
we were in downtown
But
Disney.
guys,
People got money in downtown Disney.
the Strip, like you got to think that's the busiest street I think in the world, and I know hundreds for a fact. I know hundreds of people literally walked by me within 2.5 hours.
So you
Yeah.
gotta have a way of catching their attention, maintaining their
Yep.
attention, and
I'm
like
a
Yep.
girl, so I was trying to really
disarming
not
them.
get the attention.
Yeah, but
It,
then
it,
you,
it,
you can't win that way. You can't win that way.
yeah, you gotta be creative with your signs,
Yeah.
or you gotta have some kind of saying. Catch them what they're saying, and then once they go, "Oh, what do you want?" If you're making them laugh, like, "Hey, I'm just short on change. I just need to catch the bus."
Yeah.
And most of the time, I'm like, if they don't believe me, they're like, "Oh, you're gonna go buy beer with them?" I'm like, because of the way I look, I would assume the same thing
Mm.
too. But no, I'm kidding on the bus. If you don't believe me, you can watch me get on the bus as soon as I have enough money, and I'm gone.
Yeah, I think
And
just be
Yeah.
creative with it. If you're creative and you're disarming, and especially I think if you can make somebody laugh, I think your
yeah,
chances are like phenomenally higher.
oh yeah,
Well, I did tell Ghost, and I was like, I think I do have to bring the dog. He's like, well, you have to take off its sweaters. You can't
That's
have
they
a
true.
like
dog.
they actually like the dogs with sweaters. That is a
Really?
good little, yeah. They
Oh,
they
No, because
they
then
love
they'll
any
think I have
animals with.
money.
No,
well,
they
no,
they half the time they don't even realize. They're like, "Oh, where'd you get the sweater?" I'm like, "Oh, say something like, oh, I would, this homeless place has, clothes for animals, just in case you haven't." Because most of the time you will come across people who are like just, hopping on the train. Train hoppers will have, dogs and cats with them. I don't know how they have cats, but they have fucking cats with them. But
Yeah.
most of the time they have small little dogs, and they use their little dog, and people like some of the guys that I came across, they train their dog to like spin and sit and lay down and
yeah,
do all
yeah.
kinds of shit. They
It's
were creative with
entertainment.
what they're doing.
It's
Yeah.
entertainment. If you can entertain, people also feel like they're not giving you money. They feel like they're tipping you for a service. You provided an entertainment service. Like Pearl Street in Colorado, in Boulder, Colorado, Pearl Street is like this walking mall. It's an outdoor mall, and like hippie. It's not hippie anymore. It's super yuppie, but it used to be a hippie strip. And it was all street performers. They were really all panhandling, but they all had some kind of craft, something that they did that people would
Oh
stand there
yeah,
and
they have that
watch.
on the Strip.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So like because I have red hair, I could pretend to be like the Little Mermaid or something, and little kids could
Yeah.
take pictures.
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
be
guess.
creative with it. Like I said, whenever
Yeah.
I had to do it, I was always in my full getup, and I always had my hair done. Like if I had a mohawk, that motherfucker went up. He was up, and it was colored, everything. And I'd just be like, you look at me and think I'm out of a comic book.
I think
That's how I got
people
most of my money.
give more out of like cheer than I think they will out of pity. And especially like in today's age, and I could be totally wrong, that's just my opinion, but I would be more inclined to give money to somebody if they were in it, like if it was out of cheer. Like I'm like, damn, that was really cool, or that was really funny, or wow, that was creative. Yeah, here versus like pity. Like you have a sign that's like F the world,
You know?
I'm the downtrodden, everybody's evil, and I just feel like you'll get people probably, but I think it would be less than someone like, damn, that was really creative, or that was really cool, or you were really nice to me. Yeah, here, of course. But anyways, I got to run. This was interesting.
Bye, guys.
This would be a
Sorry, I
funny
just had to
topic
share
at some
that
point.
quick
No,
thing.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Dude, guys, I got so many stories.
At some point,
I got so many stories, and times I should have died, and I was like, whoa, that was like a sign from God telling me to get the house out of an area like this. I got all kinds of crazy stuff, dude.
yeah, we got to do it, man, because we've talked about it a handful of times. But doing like a Thursday or maybe a Saturday or even a Sunday, because it's doing like testimonies. We'll schedule a couple people because
Yeah.
just do testimonies because a lot of us have checkered pasts to some degree or
Oh yeah,
another.
no,
So
we all definitely do.
we'll try to plan that. And then maybe like I said, once a month or for the next however months until whoever was interested in doing it gets to go. But we do a couple people on a Sunday or a couple people on a Thursday or something. I think it'd be good. So you might see something about that soon because I think that'd be good. It would also just help all of us like get to know each other more in a more
Yeah.
intimate
I got
way.
a good, I got a
Okay.
good story that I'll tell when we do it.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely do too. All right, y'all. I'm out. Love y'all.
Bye, guys.
Have a
Love you
great
guys.
night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
YouTube, have a lovely evening. As always.